What's up, people? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Epic Career Secrets. I'm your host, Arvind. I run a website called epiccareerlabs.com where I use the power of stories to help people, especially working professionals, find direction, get clarity, and succeed at work. It's been a fun and interesting journey so far, and I've been doing this for some time now. And of course, I've been growing through the ups and downs, and going through all the teething pains and the growing troubles. And I think, uh, I think, as you and I, as we go on this journey, we're definitely going to be becoming better and better at what we do. So I wanted to thank you for watching. If you're just tuning in, either right now, live, or at some time in the future, this episode is going to be all about getting noticed at work. It's really simple. Okay, I am not, to clarify, I'm not going to be talking about personal branding. That's an entirely different beast, and that's something that's a lot more strategic in nature and doesn't come around talking about this. I am not going to be talking about reputation management either. Okay, reputation management and personal branding, very similar but still distinct concepts. In this episode and in this video, I'm going to be talking about just one thing: tactical stuff that you can do to get noticed at work. Now, each one of us, we all have different reasons to get noticed. Some of us might be looking for growth. Some of us might be looking for a leg up when it comes to office politics. Others might be looking at it as a way of advancing their own personal growth or for themselves to find better opportunities. Whatever your reason, getting noticed at work is a good thing. Unfortunately, most of us, we've never learned how to go about doing this. Okay? There's never been any education, there's never been any training until this video practically came along. So congratulations to you. If at any time you have any questions, either when I'm recording this live or when you are watching this at any time in the future, go ahead and leave a comment so that I will be able to address them, either live on video. If not, then, whenever we do get to it. Okay? So without much ado, let's get started. Okay, first one, find new quests. As you can see, this is like one of the first videos that I'm doing as a part of Epic Career Labs, where I'm focusing and packaging everything within the whole framework of stuff being epic. And one of the most interesting and amazing things that happen when people go on epic journeys is that they get quests. Now, what this means in a professional context, what that means when you are trying to get noticed at work, means that you find additional gigs to do. You do additional things. Now, you probably have, let's say, 10 items on your to-do list, which are, rather than your to-do list, in your job responsibility sheet, okay? Let's say there's a magical sheet that tells you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. These are the 10 things that you need to do as part of your job, and this is why you're getting paid. Now, if you have to find new quests, that means that you go above and beyond your call of duty, and you find those tasks and you complete them. Now, why is this a good thing? I mean, video games and Dungeons and Dragons, all of them have a very good reasoning and explanation, and I'm pretty sure you can think about it logically as well. When you go about doing these additional quests, side quests, if you will, what happens is you start leveling up, right? You start gaining more experience. You get to apply the things that you already know to more and more tasks, and that increases your market value. And when you are stepping above and beyond your call of duty, people tend to take you more seriously. People tend to think of you more often. They think of you as the person who's like, hey, guess what? She doesn't do just what she's supposed to do, but she's out here helping me out or helping such and such out. And that's a great place to do that. And especially when you do this without expecting anything in return, you tend to get a lot more visibility, a lot more value. But guess what? There will be times when this does not work, in the sense like they don't give you any recognition, they don't say thank you, none of that. But you still come out the winner. Why? Because one, the act of doing this quest itself will make you better. That's number one. Number two, you gain this new experience that you can go ahead and apply. And number three, sometimes expecting nothing from whatever you're doing is the best way forward. So that's the first way to do it. Okay, find new quests. Next is to be a hero. Now, there are many different interpretations and definitions of what's a hero. I believe that the people who are a part of the Epic Career Labs community are heroes themselves, simply because there is a certain approach, a certain mindset that we all adopt when it comes to approaching life as such. In fact, over the weekend, I had written out something quite interesting and quite useful that I'm kind of hoping is the definition of what it means to be a hero, right? And it goes something like this. I'm paraphrasing, and I've not fixed it fully yet. It goes something along the lines of, "For the darkness, I am the light. For my friends, I am the shield. For my enemies, I am the sword. For life, I'm a student. And for my own story, I am a hero." Now you see this last bit, "for my own story, I am the hero." It's quite important because it's kind of the crux of what I'm trying to communicate and share with you through these videos and through the work that I do at Epic Career Labs, is that we are all heroes of our own story. It doesn't matter where we're coming from. It doesn't matter where we're going. But it's important to realize that we are all heroes in our own journey. And when we are going on this journey, we realize that there is a lot of opportunity for us to write out our own stories. And when we are choosing to write out our own story, we can make it whatever we want to be. And when we are a hero, usually that means that we are willing/able to do things that others are not able to or unwilling to do. Let's take this in the context of your office, okay? Maybe there are some things like filing like X, Y, and Z returns, or making the ABC report. I don't know what they are, but there's a chance that there'll be this thing that nobody else is either willing or able to do. And if you make that your main quest, if you voluntarily take that up and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at it and I'm going to do it," that immediately gives you extra focused attention. And that's a very, very powerful way to get noticed at work. There isn't any risk involved for you. Well, you can say, "Hey, at least I tried," right? But the point is, you're taking up a thing that nobody else wants to touch. And if you can deliver on it, a lot more visibility. The next point. Oh, I love this. When you go play a whole bunch of games or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, whenever you finish a particular quest or you defeat a particularly difficult monster, what happens is you win a ton of loot. Sometimes you get magical items, sometimes you get gold and silver and copper, whatever you want to pay, right? You also get experience points. But you know what? Working together, you'd probably be able to achieve a lot more. You're probably able to fight a much higher level monster than you can fight all alone. Now, this is pretty important because we're going to be exploring some of the dynamics that can come up when you're working in a party, in a group, right? And we're going to be unpacking that over the next couple of points in this video. But when you finish this quest, or when you have killed this monster and you have this loot, it may be that, maybe others did not contribute as much, or maybe they did. Whatever it is, if you choose to consciously share this loot with everybody, if you choose to consciously give credit to others who are there along with you, you immediately get noticed. You know what? Psychologically, one more thing happens. If you're the person who's like saying like, thanks to Mr. Green Bottle for helping me fix the windows, and to Mr. Red Bottle for fixing all the doors, and of course, how could I forget Mr. Gray Bottle? Yes, I do have a lot of bottles. To fixing the carpets and all that, and that's how we were able to build such a wonderful house. Now, if you say that, suddenly you're not the same as Mr. Green Bottle, Red Bottle, or Gray Bottle. Those are like the dumbest names ever, but you get what I'm saying, right? You're not the same. You're the one who's introducing them. You're the one who's like, meet my team type. So psychologically, what happens is you're immediately bumped up a little bit higher, and that's a pretty cool thing to do. Okay. Next one that we have is to lead the raid. When it comes to adventure games, a raid is a particularly difficult monster that you have to kill, and usually it requires many, many people working together over extended periods of time to kill that monster. Now, it's not an easy thing, and of course, it's a big thing when it comes to online role-playing games, but here, when it comes to a professional setting, this could be a special project that you're running. It could be the one that you're saying, hey, you know what? This is the big, bad, evil guy that I'm going to be fighting, and I'm going to be organizing the team that's going to come together, and we're all going to work together and fight this. Now, depending upon the level that you are in your hierarchy, you can choose the size of this big, bad, evil guy that you want to fight. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're a fresher. It doesn't matter if you're 15 years experience. It really doesn't matter. What you do is you want to do stuff at your level so that you can actually go about and bring together a number of different people who can work together and address this project. And guys, at this time, I just want to take a small moment to tell you that at any time, if you want to leave your comments on chat or if you want to leave it as a comment, feel free. Okay, we're about 10 minutes in, and there's definitely a lot more of interaction that I'm looking to do. That's one thing. And the other thing that I want to do is, in case if you haven't done so, there's a ticker going on at the bottom. And this is where I am found on Facebook, Insta, and YouTube. So if you haven't done so already, please do connect with me. So when you're leading this raid, like I said, you are the one who's putting together this big project that you're going to be doing. But you know what? Leading a raid or starting off a new project is not easy. You need to do something called boost your APM. I first learned of this concept called APM, also known as actions per minute, when I started watching StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 is a wonderful, I think it came out in the early 2000s. I'm not sure when it came out. It's a game by Blizzard, I think. It's a science fiction strategy game where you command your own armies. You could be Terran, you could be the Protoss, or you could be the Zerg. 3 different types of armies that you could have, and you could essentially build up and you could fight wars and get over resources and stuff like that. So it's a very fun game, and personally, I always loved playing the Zerg. Now, here's the thing. I am a casual gamer. What that means is I am not a specialist. I don't spend hours and hours and hours playing games. I wish I could, okay, but I don't, right? I have a day job. I used to have a day job. This is my day job now. But apart from that, I used to watch these professionals. Okay? By professionals or even semi-professionals, these were usually younger people younger than I am from South Korea. And the number of actions they would do, right? That was usually something that was of a great number of, it was of great importance. Okay, on an average, I could take about 1 action a second. Okay, I probably had an APM of about 40 to 60 actions per minute. That's what I would have. Whereas the professionals, I can't even believe I'm saying this, almost 200 to 300 actions per minute. That means literally 3 actions a second. Okay, that's like an average. 3 actions. They were 3 times faster than what I was, and within that same time frame, they could do 3 times as many things as I could do. Now, I'm a casual guy, okay? I'm a casual gamer, right? But when you're comparing this to what about, when you're looking at the professionals, they are operating at a whole higher level. And one of the main biggest advantages they have is that the number of actions they can take per minute is much, much higher. Now, if you take this concept, if you take this analogy and apply it to your own career, you see that boosting the number of actions you can do in a minute is much, much higher. Now, of course, you don't want to do it just per minute, but what this translates to, and the way I interpret this, is the number of things that you can do in a day. If you can boost that, the amount of result that you can put out is going to be much, much higher. Now, if you're not going to be focusing on quantity, that's fine. That just means that you're working much faster and you can deliver something of much higher quality within the same time period. Right now, let's say, think of it as painting a wall, right? If you can paint it, if you can paint one wall of 1 meter by 1 meter, this sounds like a cat example, but if you could paint a 1 meter squared wall in 1 minute, okay? Now imagine if you could do the same thing in 30 seconds, right? So now what happens? Well, in 1 minute, you could have painted that wall twice as well, twice as better, twice as good, or you could have painted twice as much area at the same level. So you see your throughput, the amount of effort that you can deliver in a minute is much, much higher. By minute, of course, I mean per unit time, is much, much higher, which makes you a lot more valuable. How do you translate this into value? Very simple. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you're working on projects that are of importance to the company. And if you can, like the stuff that we discussed before, maybe you could start a raid, you could lead a raid, that's there. Maybe you spend more time being the hero, where you're taking up projects that others don't want to do or are unable to do. And you know what? Usually, and this is based on my experience, the work that nobody else wants to do is the grunt work. Okay, it's the lazy work. It's the work that is mind-numbing. It's boring. Well, you know what? If you're faster, not just mechanically but also intellectually, then you could probably process that much, much better. Okay, I'm going to just break to a question that's come up. Don't you think that strategizing to get noticed at work flies right into the bedrock of any professional life? Doing great work, which in itself should be the only way to get truly noticed. Siddhartha, I am, first off, my mouth is hidden, so I'm probably going to be just hiding that a little bit. Now, look, okay, you know what? I'm going to show you because it's important. It it does not fly into the. It's not a violation of this concept, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And I feel that if you do just good work, your chance of getting noticed is very, very small. All right, because sometimes it's not about how good you are; it's about how good others think you are. Look, if if you're really that good, then you would expect that people are going to be coming to you and clamoring to pay you and give you recognition. Well, unfortunately, the real world does not work that way. What ends up happening most of the time is it's not about how good you are, it's about how good others believe that you are. That's where stuff like personal branding, that's where stuff like reputation management, that's where stuff like advertising and marketing actually comes up, right? Because think about it. You could be like really, really good, but so could the guy next to you and the woman next to you on the other side, right? So now there are three people who are equally good. Okay, maybe it's a comparison of apples and oranges and bananas, right? Whatever the situation is. Now, me as a manager, I don't necessarily have the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth to do the complex assessment of is the apple better, is the banana better, or is the orange better? I don't have that. Now, if you, as a smart professional, are going to be making my life easier, by giving me proof, by giving me testament that, hey, testimonial that tells me that, hey, you know what? I've actually done this work and here is proof. That makes my decision making much, much easier. And you know what? When you do stuff like this, something else happens also. As a manager, now I have a new benchmark, right? And since you have provided more value for me and you have decided to make my life easier, everything else, like let's say if you're the apple, right? I'm still going to be checking with the banana and the orange. I don't like where this is going, but I'm still going to be checking with that. Hey, do you have something like this? And in 99% of the cases, they're not going to have. So that again sets you apart. But such a statement, right, where just bring that up on screen, to get noticed, strategizing to get noticed, I think it is unfortunately very, very necessary. Simply because that's how cluttered the world is when we're operating. Sometimes you have to be savvy. Sometimes you have to do stuff like what I'm talking in this video to get noticed at work. This does not excuse you, okay? And this is a personal accord between you and me, you being the one who's watching this video, that this is not a free pass for you to, not do great work. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be like my mom says, a box of asafoetida, right? It's a very pungent, very flavorful spice that sits in a box, and even after the contents of the box are removed, you can still smell the essence of that spice, right? It's not like that. Okay, this won't work in the long term. If you don't have stuff, if you're not doing great work, you are screwed, and you don't want to be there, right? So you definitely want to like embellish, not embellish, like you definitely want to bring to attention the work that you've already done. So that's there. Thank you for your question, Siddharth. All right. Next up after APMs is to look at the signs. In many games, as well as in real life, there are certain indicators about how you're faring. You probably have a hit point indicator. You probably have the number of actions left, the amount of money left. These are all different indications that you have about your performance. Even in the real world, you need to adopt a mindset of testing, of rapid testing and prototyping and testing once again. What that means is, let's say that you identify that you want to do a certain task, okay? And the way that you want to jump to, right? You have like by nature, irrespective of where you're coming from, you want to go after the first. That's what you're going to end up doing. You're going to go after the first way to do something, okay? And more often than not, we tend to commit to that, and we just commit and commit until we get trapped in a sunk cost prison. We don't want to do that because we're smart people, right? When we're trying to build an epic career, we want to think like a hero. And what happens is when you're thinking like a hero, you're going to be looking at, okay, I have like 4 different ways that I can do A, B, C, and D. There are 4 different ways that I can approach this particular task. Now, I'm going to try A, see if it works. I'm going to try B, C, and D as well to see which one actually works best. Now, of course, over time, what happens is you build up this sense of expertise. And that's where things get tricky. You're just going to resort to your favorite technique. That's okay. But every now and then, consciously, you want to like upend this whole thing and look at the signs of, hey, what if I went back and tried different techniques again? I know this because I'm going to be sharing a personal story of mine. For the longest time, I thought I was a writer. I loved writing, and I was actually quite good at it. But however, there was one small challenge I faced. I could never, ever motivate myself to come sit down and write. Just wouldn't happen. I would just come up with all sorts of random excuses and say, you know what, I'm just going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that, but never actually got down to writing. But when I did actually get down to writing, I realized that, dude, I'm actually good at this. Now, that was a bit of a problem situation for me. And I had always assumed that because of my English and my upbringing and my passion for writing, I ended up thinking that I was only a writer. Then, through a series of fortunate events, I discovered the joy of video. Even then, I used to have a lot of hassle, a lot of internal strife because I was looking, how can I make this video much, much better? So I would be trapped in this vicious circle of perfection. And again, I wouldn't do it. Until very recently, I discovered live streaming. Live streaming is pretty awesome because one, there is no editing involved. All of this that you see has been recorded live. And for those of you who are there, it is live for you. And you're giving me questions and I'm answering them. It also removes a whole chunk of preparation that I need to do, and I can just improvise. Most of the time, I'm talking off the cuff and I'm sharing my stories so that you can benefit from them. So when I'm looking at the signs, when I'm seeing the feedback that I'm getting, when I'm seeing how well I'm enjoying this and how easy it is for me to get these things out, I'm like, dude, it makes so much of sense. So that's why I always recommend look at the signs to see how well you're able to perform a certain task, and therefore look at the results that you're getting from it. And keep the ones that are working, ditch the ones that are not. And of course, over time, repeat this test so that you don't get stuck in a rut. Let's look at some more questions. Oh, it's actually Siddharth saying understood. Cool, buddy. Awesome. So we spoke about looking at the signs. Now here's another thing, right? Remember how we spoke about boosting your APM, right? So you want to be able to do more stuff. What do you do with that extra time that you gain and the extra efficiency? You want to boost your stats. Boost your stats. Well, this is again very, very common theme when it comes to role-playing games. You have different statistics in a game, right? You have strength, agility, dexterity, vitality, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Different games have different stats that are important to them. And I would wager, and I'm actually building this out for Epic Career Labs as we speak, that even for our professional career, there are different stats that we want to keep in mind, okay? Earlier, I had identified some stats that are necessary for our personal development, stuff such as communication, courage, charisma, command, community, collaboration, and ability to deal with change. So these are all from an earlier avatar. But what I'm trying to say is there are always stats that you can invest on. And what that means is you learn new skills, you develop yourself in certain stats. If you put in enough time, and now the time varies because you want to figure out how much of time makes sense for you considering the kind of reward, the ROI, the return on investment that you want, and see how you can put these things together, right? So what I'm saying is, if you have extra time, boost your stats, boost your skills. Now, there are different ways to do this. You can just do more practice. You can attend a course. You can learn new skills. You could attempt new projects on the side. There are a number of different ways that we can do this. And one of the heroes that we have at Epic Career Labs has actually asked this question about, hey, how do I actually go about learning new skills? And that's going to be a different episode coming up later. But for now, you realize that you can definitely boost your stats. And when you're boosting your stats, what happens is you get noticed very, very easily. A quick beverage break, if you don't mind. Man, I love my tea. All right. Speaking of stats, see that energy? There are two specific stats that you definitely want to invest in. One is charisma, the other one is hygiene. Charisma is not about you looking good. Charisma is not about you being very, very attractive or very sexy, so to speak. Charisma is about, it's a blend of confidence. It's a blend of confidence, conversations, right? If you can hold a good conversations, general listening ability, and the ability to put somebody else at ease. Look, the secret to charisma, as far as I can tell, okay, and as far as this is my secret to charisma, is to always be willing to walk away, right? So when you come sit at the table and you're going all in or you're just betting about $100, it doesn't matter. What you're trying to say is you are not directly tied to the outcome of this interaction. Okay? Whatever this encounter is, it's okay. Either way it goes, it's good. Think of it as a philosophy of stoicism blended in with poker, right? Whatever you want to call it, whatever is happening, whatever are the stakes, you're okay, man. You're still your own person. You're not worried about what he's thinking of you or what she's going to be saying about you. You are here in the moment and you want to be a lot more confident. Now, if you want a lot more tactical tips on how to boost your charisma, I'm going to say there are a bunch of challenges that I created earlier as well. But here are some things that you can actually start doing. One is make yourself more comfortable in your own skin. That essentially starts with loving yourself. There are, of course, a lot of stories that we keep on putting in our heads about what others might be saying, what we think is true, what we think others think is true. There's a whole bunch of garbage that goes on there. Switch that off. Be comfortable with who you are. Two, better than what I can teach you, there are other people who can teach you. And whether you are a guy or a girl or anything else, it doesn't matter. Check out these two books. One is by Lael Londes, and I've mentioned this before on this channel. It's called How to Talk to Anyone. And she's written a whole host of different books, but this book is definitely going to be making you a lot more comfortable. Next is a book called Rules of the Game by Neil Strauss. You know what? I think I'm going to just type it out very quickly. Rules of the Game, and that's by Neil Strauss. I desperately hope I got his name and spelling right. And of course, there is 92 tips and tricks on how to talk to anyone by Lael Londes. Okay, this is the other book. Okay, if you can see that, then go ahead, pick those books up and start reading them. This book, I found it at a very interesting time in my life. I was doing research for Toastmasters speech, which is all about Tinder. Now, I joined Toastmasters after I became a dad, and I'm very committed. I'm going on video to say this to my wife and my baby girl. Now, but that speech was about Tinder because I was going for a very humorous approach, if you will, right? This was about a year ago. And that's when I found this book, which is all about pickup artists and how you can attract somebody of the opposite sex. Though it's been written predominantly for men, I am very confident that women can definitely use the techniques listed in this book and go to town, so to speak. So similarly, this other book that I read, which is called 92 Tips and Tricks, I found it in college. And that is essentially what helped transform me from a shy, extremely bullied, very, very emotionally stunted individual to somewhat well-adjusted with society. Both of these books are very, very powerful when you are looking to boost your charisma. That's the first one. The second one is about hygiene. Ladies, I honestly, I'm not well-versed enough to tell you what needs to be done in terms of hygiene. But for men, again, I'm not the de facto rule on what is style and what is hygiene, right? But I know that these are the basics that you should definitely look at. One, make sure you are clean. Use soap while taking a bath. Take a bath every day. Don't stink. Wear clothes that are clean. Make sure your teeth are clean. You brush them. If your hair is like this, go see a barber unless you're in lockdown. So that's their trim, look presentable. Now look, again, I am not the expert when it comes to this. I'm hoping that as a part of these live streams, I can actually interview someone who is a personal image consultant or something, right? And look at how we can, help you become more presentable. But the point is this: if you have to be presentable, do the best that you can. Be hygienic. It's as simple as that. All right. A couple of questions that are coming up. Aniket says, adding these books to my wish list. I highly recommend it. Deepa says, can you please message the book names in the group once? Yes, I will. For those of you who don't know, I do run a WhatsApp group as well as a Telegram group where people from all over the world can come in and be a hero as a part of the Epic Career Labs community. This is free of charge, and if you haven't done so already, just go to that thing that's scrolling over here, or of course, you can see the link in the doobly-doo, the description box below this video. That will have the links to the email list as well, where you can join. Ashish asks, out of curiosity, how many books on an average do you read per 6 months or a year? Okay, so Ashish, this may scare you, or this thing. So I have many different. Yeah, so like right now, just within hands reach, I have at least two books, and I have a lot of books on my Kindle as well. I tend to read roughly about 3 to 4 books a month. Now, I will kind of qualify that by saying that I don't read um, just about one particular topic. Like one of my favorite books is this one, right? Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. Okay, if you haven't seen it already, highly recommend it. One of the best books that I ever think for making this much better than it possibly can be. Apart from that, I read a lot of books on terms of dungeon mastering. I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm always working to improve that. I'm reading a lot of stuff on marketing. I read a lot of stuff on motivation, gamification. I used to read a lot about leadership and business transformation, but right now, considering what I'm planning and hoping to do with Epic Career Labs and the roadmap that I have in mind, I'm definitely investing a lot more time into um, learning and development. Like, how can I teach people stuff? That's one. But right now, my reading's a little bit reduced. I'm only able to read like about 2, 3 books a month, as opposed to the usual 4 or 5. Now, I am trying to compensate for it, and one very easy way to do that is to go with audiobooks. Now, right now, we don't have much of a commute, but uh, when we did do that, I mean, like when we were able to drive around, what happened was I would just plug it in and I'd be just going. And I used to have like about an hour and 15 minutes drive in one way, so I could like finish off like books in a week or something, right? So that was very helpful. Otherwise, Kindle is very useful. And of course, I practice a certain technique where I like before I read the entire book. Of course, I don't read much fiction. My fault. If you are looking at fiction, I recommend Terry Pratchett. When it comes to nonfiction, I skim the table of contents first, and then I look at like all the contents of the book themselves, right? Like I just very quickly speed read through the whole thing, looking at titles and chapter head and see what catches my fancy. And when I'm studying, what I do is I actually take notes, right? So when I'm reading, I actually take notes. I type them out on the computer, or I have them on a piece of paper like this. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah. So I've been thinking about a bunch of different things, right? So it is definitely useful, and I highly recommend that as well. So yeah, for 6 months, I'm going to say about 20 books or so. Okie dokie. Oh wait, there are more. How many hours a day do you spend daily for reading books alone? I spend about an hour. So what happens is I sleep early. I sleep by around 10 o'clock or something, and I get up by around 6. And what my family does, my wife, my daughter, and I, we retire to the bedroom by around 9. And what we do is we just sit and we read, right? My wife and I, we read. My daughter, Maya, she does one of three things. One of three things. One, she dances to music. Okay, she loves full tapangut, full Bollywood item numbers. She loves to dance for. That's number one. Or she will also sit and read her own books. That's also quite interesting. We make it very clear that we are not going to be reading to her. She's going to be reading for herself. So that's there. And finally, the third thing that she does is annoy the hell out of us so that we can't read and we end up sleeping. So those are the three things that happen. But roughly on an average, I manage to get in about an hour of reading before I sleep. And of course, our biggest goal is to make sure that we are away from our phones and all that. I set my alarms by around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Like right after this, I'll be switching off, not switching, I'll be putting in the D&D mode, so only select people's things will get through. And yeah, that's how I roll. I managed to read about that. Oh, this is a nice question, Aniket. How is Dungeons and Dragons related to careers? Well, I believe that, look at this. Okay, for me, I am able to marry what I know of Dungeons and Dragons, my long love affair with fantasy fiction, as well as my love for video games and my understanding of careers into one unanimous, almost homogenous whole, if you will. Now, the way I see it working is, and this is something that I've discussed earlier as well, is that I believe our career is also just like one giant adventure. Okay, each one of us is a hero, and I'm going to be taking an entire episode to explain this. But the short version is each one of us is a hero. We all have the opportunity to go on adventures, and we need a mentor, somebody like me, who can help you cross over that threshold. from the broken world that you're living in into this new world where there's a ton of opportunity, a ton of different magical, fantastical creatures where you're going to be finding friends and allies and enemies and villains. And along the way, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be fighting these monsters and you're going to be leveling up. As you level up, you will eventually meet your big bad evil guy. You're going to find that monster. You're going to fight. If you win, that's great. If not, you're going to come back, lick your wounds, try and try again until you beat that monster. Once you've defeated your big bad evil guy, you would have gotten a reward. When you take that reward and you go back to where you were before, or in this case, from a professional front, when you are attempting to achieve something that you thought was impossible from your professional front, you will try and try again. But once you do succeed, you'd have this sense of euphoria, a sense of achievement. And when you take that knowledge that you've gained, the transformation that you've undergone, and you bring it back into the real world, there is a definite transformation that happens. And that entire journey, that hero's journey, is very simple to how Dungeons and Dragons is very, very similar to careers. I'm also working on a whole bunch of other things, such as different classes that you could go through, right? Like, what if you approach your career as a barbarian, or if you approached it as a cleric, if you approach it as a druid? There are different things, and I am definitely studying as a part of my daily reading, right, to figure out how I can make this mapping happen. So that is going to be coming out. So make sure you do check out my channel for more. Just a quick beverage break again. Right. Siddhartha says, didn't get the book names. Just scroll back in the video, but I will see if I can bring them up on screen once again. One was this, and the other one was that. Okay, so you can obviously pause the video and you can check that out. All right, let's move on. When we are going on adventures, we are going to be tending straight. We're going to be making a beeline for exactly what we want, our end goal, if you will, right? But there's definitely a lot of merit in exploring the map. Maybe there's a lot of serendipity that could happen, and you could find new things, and you could find new quests, which could again give you unforeseen rewards, and maybe even give you new skills and weapons and armor and tools that's going to make your future gameplay experience much, much better. Similarly, when you are taking this from the professional front, don't just stick to your department. Go to other departments, go to other teams, see how you can collaborate with them on different projects. Now, before you throw up 100 excuses, of course, you have to figure out a way of making this work. But what happens is suddenly you're getting a whole lot of commercial sense, right? You understand how the different parts of the business work together, and you become a lot more valuable as an employee. And when you are able to enter a conversation and then armed with this knowledge, the way you talk, the way you think about a situation changes. And that itself will manifest in a way that your seniors will take attention of what you're doing. That's one of the biggest challenges, that most people, when they're going through the career, have no clue how the business functions. They just know about their own little silo. And that, I believe, is a sad thing, right? I believe that you should endeavor to figure out how these different parts work and understand how these different pieces fit together to form this one glorious whole that you are a part of. So that's important. Next up, be a holy warrior. I am not talking about you being an extremist. I am talking about you adopting a cause and propagating that cause at all times. Now, what are some different causes that you could be a proponent of? Well, from a marketing thing, you could talk about automation, or I guess even from a technology thing, you could talk about automation. Automation can be the higher God that you're appealing to, and you are the cleric of, and you are always saying that this is the way. You are evangelizing all of this. I have done this for a number of different things. I've done it for marketing automation. I've done it for email marketing. I've done it for gamification. I am a very, very staunch believer in gamification. What about side hustles, right? Right now, it's about building an epic career. There are a lot of different things that you can become a holy warrior for, right? Essentially, wherever you go, like a zealot, you're going to be seeing that, hey, you know what? If we approach this, if it makes sense, if we approach this with such and such thing, we make a lot more sense. So now, when the company is moving forward in different directions, if you're able to contribute and give that, you are going to be tied to that one particular concept that you're going to be talking about, and that's going to be very, very good. Now, remember, there is one small thing here, which is about how do you actually pick this topic that you want to be a part of? Because this is a bit of a gamble, right? One good way to look at it, and I can't believe where I read it, but one of the best ways to be seen as a leader or as a thought leader is to go ahead to the future and wait for your audience to catch up. Again, I'm mercilessly and brutally massacring that phrase. I don't know what that quote is, but you get what I'm saying, right? You go to some place in the future where the company is going to be catching up, where your audience is going to be catching up. So when you have this future-focused vision, right, you know that this is the thing that's going to be coming up, that's going to be hot. So you go there and you just capture that place and you become a proponent of that space. That's one thing. If you're going to be thinking about, hey, how do I find out what these things are? There's the Gartner Hype Cycle. I think that's what it's called. I'm not too sure. Just Google for it, right? In case one of you guys know, please just, it's called the Gartner Hype Cycle. And what that's all about is about technologies that are going to be picking up and going down and reaching the mainstream and stuff like that. So pick one of those and say, hey, you know what, we can do this. And suddenly, if you are building your entire persona around this, it's going to be very, very easy for you to attract attention. Cool. So that's another one. This is a concept that we've spoken about. Love the grind. Continuous improvement never escapes notice. So, it might be like for you, it's like, oh my God, nothing's happening. But for somebody who's checking in with you once a month and then they see how far you've come in, like, let's say 6 months, they'll be like, dude, what the hell? This is good stuff. Go for it, right? You're doing a great job. Keep at it. So love the grind, of course. That's a great way to go about it. Earlier, I had mentioned about leading a raid party. If you're not doing that, that's okay. Sometimes that's not your strength or that's not what you're interested in. But what you can do is you can be a part of this raiding party. You don't have to lead it, but you can definitely help out. And that's a great, great, great way to attract attention as well. If you are working, if you can get that opportunity to contribute to a high visibility project, go for it, because that's one of the easiest ways to gain visibility at work. Now, when you're in this party, there are two things that you can do, okay? And I recommend only one of these two things, which is, one is to be a tank. In video game Dungeons and Dragons parlance, you're the one who can take the maximum amount of beating. Think of this as the person in this project, in your professional project, as the person who's keeping everything together. He's the one or she's the one who's keeping all of this stuff from falling apart, okay? Think of this person as the project manager. Think of this person as the one who's motivating everything. He or she is this person who is going to be preventing this particular thing from just falling apart into a pipe dream, okay? This is important. This is a very important role because the success of this particular project is going to depend on you. That's number one. The other one is to be the cannon. Now, the cannons or glass cannons, as far as adventure games go, are these very weak in terms of fortitude. Like, they're very physically very weak people, but who can deal like insane amounts of damage, right? They go down very quickly. They don't necessarily play well with others, but they can do a lot of damage. Everybody wants them in the party. So when you are going on a raid, if you're the cannon, that means you're going to be doing thinking, right? You're going to be the one who's actually writing the code, or you're going to be the one who is doing the research, or whatever that thing is, right? The stuff that's literally going to be moving the needle, you want to be the person doing that. These are two of the best ways for you to contribute to a high visibility project, either within the company or even outside. Think of open source projects or GitHub projects or whatever have you, right? These are all things that you can do as long as you can contribute. As long as you can show that you contributed and you've actually moved that needle, that's going to be a big, big plus for you. Okay, I think we're almost done. And yes, this is quite important. Hunt the dragon, but kill the goblin. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of different ways that we can build up attention, right? And one of the easiest ways to do that is very close to what I had mentioned earlier about becoming a holy warrior, right? So let's say that if you're going to be hunting the dragon, right? You obviously what to do is you want to kind of start small and then build up to the dragon, right? So you start off by killing the goblins, right? So now let's say, what I mean by this is, let's say you have a big professional project that you want to go for, a big goal that's very, very important. Always keep that goal in mind, okay? And make sure that you're constantly talking about this. I'm going to be showing you how to do that as well. Constantly talking about this big thing that you want to achieve. Make sure it's sufficiently far away in the future, like a year or two, which is, again, an outcome of goal setting, right? So once you've identified when you can do this, keep on talking, do the work that actually moves the needle. If you have to kill those 7 goblins before you can get to that magic cave, then you know what? Go do that. Kill those 7 goblins. What I'm trying to say for this in a professional perspective is this. you will have long-term projects, right? And you definitely want to nail them down. You definitely want to say that this is exactly what I'm going for. You want to have that written down, and you want to talk about it at every possible opportunity. After that, you will have to do the work and start communicating that you are doing the work as well. That's how you get noticed, right? You're talking about this at different opportunities. Already, I can see people, I can imagine people saying, like, dude, what the hell, man? That's so cheap. It feels like I'm spamming and stuff like that. Well, there are techniques on how you can go about doing that. And I'm going to be covering um, that in the later part of this video. But the point is this, okay? The point is this, you definitely want to keep track of what you're doing, right? Have that end goal in mind, figure out the step-by-step progress, and start working on this progress, and then share your progress with everybody. Just going to go for a question that's there. Guten Abend. I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to say it's German for good something. Well, good evening to you too. I'm sorry, man, not well versed in that language. All right. So remember how I was just talking about, you want to have that long-term goal, and you definitely want to keep on pushing that, and then you want to keep killing these goblins and doing the work. Well, along that journey, you want to maintain your book of lore. Now, what this means is, from a professional perspective, you want to record, you want to chronicle all your efforts, all your successes, and all your failures as well. You don't have to keep this as public record. You don't have to. But what you have to do is essentially write down that, hey, this is the stuff that I've been doing, this is the kind of success I've had, and this is what I've done. Now, this serves multiple purposes, especially this book of lore, right? When it comes to your appraisal time, you know what to talk about, saying, hey, I achieved A, B, C, and D. When it comes to updating your LinkedIn profile, you have points to add. When it comes to negotiating for a raise in a new job or interview points, you know what to talk about. 99% of the people out there, they don't have a book of lore. I can't believe it. Anywhere I go, anywhere I'm leading a team, this is like the first thing I ask them. I ask them to maintain a list of the things that they do, and it's going to be very, very important, because that's how they're going to know how far they've come. For you, it's even more important, because this is how you're going to be keeping track of your progress. And at the right time, be it appraisal time, being one-on-one discussions, and especially with the next tip that I'm going to be sharing with you, you're always going to be having 2 or 3 things to just just to release out there. I don't know how else to say it. You always have it in your hip pocket, and you can just very quickly say, yeah, you know what, I've done this, and blah, 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 blah. All right, so maintain your book of lore. How does this look like? It's a Google sheet with a date which says, this is the project I did, this is the kind of result I got. It doesn't get easier than that. Maintain that. A journal, right? This, I think, if anything, this has to be the most important and most effective way to get noticed at work. And that is, you are able to talk about yourself without sounding like a douche. How do you do that? Well, what you want to do is, here's the thing, okay? You start talking about other people in a good way. Let's say you have your best friend, Jane. I don't know how many people have a best friend called Jane, but she's my best friend. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 achievements that she's done, okay? And whenever possible, in any conversation where I can talk about, I'm going to say, hey, if it makes sense, oh, you know what? Jane did something like that. She managed to finish those ABC reports and submit them to Mr. Greenbottle. That's so cool. So what's happening is that you're getting comfortable talking about people's achievements. That's number 1. Number 2 is you are getting a hang of how to insert different topics as a part of the conversation, right? So a story will be going this way, and you have this point to make. So you have to make that slight detour so that you can connect the story to that point. Okay, so that's a little bit of a tricky thing. But if you're going to be doing it about yourself, that's going to look very crass and uncouth. But if you're talking about somebody else and you're talking good about them behind their back, it puts you in a good place, and it also helps you practice this skill. Once you are comfortable and once you are confident that at any given time you can just whip out stuff and talk about the good stuff that other people have done, it's time for you to start developing 3 or 4 stories. Now, these stories can be in different fields, right? But it all has to relate to work. It all has to relate to significant achievements that you've done, and of course, the stuff that you've learned from them. Key thing is that you start with the learning bit. Why? Because learnings are perhaps the safest way to introduce or to connect concept A with concept B. If you're having a conversation with someone where you're saying that, I did all of these things and I learned all of this, that's less impactful than saying, one of the coolest things I learned was the fact that sometimes it doesn't matter how horrible your hair looks, you just have to live with it. And then, from there, I could segue to, yeah, man, I started cutting my own hair, and that's something else. Now, cutting your own hair is the achievement, but the lesson that you learn is like the perfect, safe gateway for you to set up the conversation so that you can move the conversation into talking about you cutting your own hair. Of course, cutting your own hair is an achievement. Kudos, go for it. But that is obviously an example. And as Ashish says, as a consequence of it, you become better at table topics too. Absolutely. Now, honestly, I can't say whether I became better at table topics because of stuff like this, or did stuff like this make me better at table topics, right? Or vice versa. I don't know. But the mere fact is at the heart of all of this is improvisation. But here's the thing: you don't want to completely improvise the whole thing, right? You want to have this library of different stories, different anecdotes, different quips, which talk about you and your achievements. You want to have them in a library in your head, right? But in runtime, when you're literally going live, you're taking these different things and you're stitching them together. You see what I mean? You're not cooking up the whole thing at one spot. You have done some prep work, right? You are obviously prepared. You know what to talk about. If you ask me what is my biggest achievement, I'm probably going to say it's either playing paintball for India, or being a successful entrepreneur for a year, or surviving as an entrepreneur for a year, or playing Dungeons and Dragons, because those are the three things that I'm prepared for. But the way I'm going to be communicating them to you is different depending upon how the conversation is going to be. And I'm probably going to be stitching different things together in runtime. And that's what I want you to do as well, right? I want you to look at the different anecdotes, the different stories, the different ideas that you have about your own success. Remember, look at your book of lore. It's important, because that's where you can go back and look at different things from. And you can have that ready in your mental library that you can just let loose into a conversation. Of course, improvisation is a difficult skill. It's not something that you can pick up overnight. There are definitely some people who are more gifted at it than others. That's absolutely fine. But you get to practice by talking good stuff about others when you are practicing these conversations. Alrighty, I think we're almost done. I am down to the one last point that I have. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions before I go over the last point, please go ahead and type it out in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer. And for you who's watching this video at some time in the future, if you haven't done so already, please join up the email list. There's a lot of good content. You're going to be getting some of my free courses, and of course, a lot of good carbon as well. So that's definitely there. All right, Siddhartha asks, how does this apply and fit in if you are self-employed? All right, Siddhartha, here's the thing. When you're self-employed, you don't have one boss, you have many bosses. And if you want to get noticed, then you have to, I think, mainly practicing the conversations with your friends or in other conversations. That's a skill, right? So it's a transferable skill that you can learn. But you will now have multiple bosses with whom you have to practice these things. So it kind of that's how it goes. There will be some situations where, like, if you don't have colleagues to do work with, or if you don't have projects that you can collaborate on with others, then open source projects and community projects are a great way to go about and contribute. I have contributed to projects such as Mozilla Voice. I think that was what it was called. I love my voice, right? And I have some good equipment, so I contribute my voice. I was also a part of the LibriVox projects, where I have narrated public domain audiobooks for free. So I do a whole bunch of open source projects as well that I can collaborate with. Another thing that I do is I often, and this is like perhaps like once in every 6 months or so, I collaborate with others on a project that has literally nothing to do with what I'm doing at work, right? So it allows me to expand my skill sets, explore other parts of the map. Remember, that was one of the points, right? So that's also something that I've found to be a very, very good platform for me. And of course, I can't end any conversation without mentioning Toastmasters, because that's a great place for us to practice all of these things. And if you haven't done that already, I'm going to highly recommend that you join Toastmasters. There are many different clubs. I have had the good fortune of belonging to Lead India Speakers Club. as well as chartering India's first online Toastmasters club, the Pros and Cons Collective. And if you want more information, just leave a comment and I will connect you to that. Okie dokie, we're almost done, and I want to share the last and perhaps the most important point when it comes to get noticed at work. Stand your ground. Look, guys, I'm going to no wish-washy, none of that nonsense, no equivocating here. Okay, there will be times when, if you know your values, if you know what you stand for, and if you know what you're against, there will be situations where you might need to go up against the boss, or you might need to go up against popular opinion. Okay, and I'm not asking you to do this because it is the cool thing to do or the easy way to get noticed. No, I'm talking about you being true to yourself, about you being authentic, about you saying that, hey, this is the right way to do it, and this is what I think we should do. There have been numerous times, especially when I was employed at my earlier company, where I had wanted to do things, and I was literally arrayed against the CEO, the COO, my boss. The CEO was my boss's boss at one time, and then my boss. I was arrayed against a room full of like 7, 8 people, right? And at that time, I still knew fundamentally that, hey, this is the right thing to do. And there have been times when, believe it or not, I've told my boss that, hey, if we can't do this, I'm quitting. All right, and I wasn't bluffing. There were things that I was not okay with, and I was very, very strongly against that particular thing. And I'm like, hey, listen, I really can't do this. Now, when this happens, okay, you do stand the risk of losing your job. You do stand the risk of being labeled as an idealist, whatever it is. Okay, if you realize, if you stand true to yourself and you stand on your ground, it's absolutely fine. That means that you are true to yourself, and that is perhaps one of the best ways to actually get noticed. Now, before you start doing this, before you start standing your ground, you need to understand what your ground is. You need to understand what is your ethics, what is your moral system, what are the values that are important to you. And if you don't know that, don't do this. Only when you completely grok yourself, only when you completely know yourself inside out, should you actually be attempting something like this. Now, personally, for me, I've been an idiot too many times in my life, and I've learned a lot of things about my life. And that's why I'm comfortable saying that when you have to stand your ground, stand your ground. Now, there will be times, and I'm not happy saying this, but this is a fact as well. There will be times when you have to suck it up and go with the flow. Now, there are different reasons, right? I have done things like that as well. When I had bills to pay, I have a 2-month-old baby in the house, my wife is not working, I'm the only breadwinner in the house. When shit's piled up yay high, I really don't have much use for ethics and morals when my back is against the wall and I have to feed my kid and my wife. These are all real situations that could happen to you. For me, it was not necessarily that dire, but I'm just accentuating it for effect because I do know one of my friends, my very close friends, is going through that shit right now. And I'm not even making this up. He's the sole breadwinner of his family. Okay? He has a job. His boss is making him do shit that he doesn't like. And if he doesn't have this job, he's pretty much screwed. So he has to suck it up, bend his morals, bend his ethics, bend his integrity, the sense that he's not staying true to himself. He's still putting up with crap just to make sure he can pay the bills. This is a difficult situation. You could be in a difficult situation. At that time, if you can choose to stand your ground, kudos. If you don't, no shame on you. We all got to do what we got to do to survive. All right? Great. So that was a good session. It was a good 1 hour. We definitely spoke a lot about the tactical stuff when it comes to getting noticed at work. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Put it in the comments, put it in the chat right now, or if you're watching this video in the future, go ahead and put it up in the comments, and I will definitely read on them as soon as I can. I will respond to them. Apart from that, I really want to thank you guys, right? Like today's been a good day. It's been a Monday from 6 to 7. We've been talking. I've been sharing this, and I'm really enjoying doing all of this. So much so that I actually have a list of topics all charted out for this entire month of May 2020. So if you have any particular topics that you want me to cover, go ahead. Just leave a what do you call that, comment. And if you can please do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, please like the page and subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I come on live. You could perhaps even put in a word with your friends if you find this useful. share this video, any other video on my channel, that's absolutely fine. I would be grateful. So now, I'm going to be waiting for about 2 minutes, or you know what, about 30 seconds, in case there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to end that while I sip my tea. That's some good tea. We have 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hasta mañana, peoples. I shall see you tomorrow. For now, this is Arvind saying over and out. In case you don't see it, this is pretty much the same as that. See this? That logo and this thing's pretty much the same. It's my hand, baby. All right, guys, take care. Stay safe. I hope you and yours are safe. We'll meet again tomorrow. Bye-bye.